Hello and welcome to Paper Plays Julie K.
Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for stopping by to check out my latest video. And today I'm here continuing to work on the full deck challenge number 3 hosted by Shanuki Art here on YouTube. And this week's prompt is sew, like the word sewing. And I've already started a little bit just because I wanted to give it a chance to dry. But I did take my card and I cut out like a sewing pattern that I had, and I glued it down onto the card. So I'm going to use that as my base, and I also went around it with some Distress ink. So those are the first things that I did. And the next thing I want to do is, again, every week we have to add an element that's a constant, and I've been using this rubber stamp, so I just thought I would stamp it in a couple of corners, just in the background. And then we also have to have a carryover item, and so I'm carrying over this piece of trim that I used last week. And I kind of think I already have an idea for what I wanted to do with this one. I had lots of bits and pieces of paper left over. I had this one that said sewing on it left over, and also this piece of paper, which is where I cut this out of from when I did Junk Journal January, and I used some of this paper in there, and so I was just playing with these couple pieces that I had left over from that from way back in January. And so I did cut out that little pattern, and also I had a bigger sheet of this paper that has like a sewing pattern in pink, because I thought that might make a nice layering piece behind it. Again, I did ink around the edges in Vintage Photo. And I also went through my scraps and I found this little vintage piece of lace. I think this one came from a 1940s wedding dress. And so I was thinking that might look nice. I just got to see if this is dried yet. Not quite. So I'll have to use my heat tool on that. But I was thinking this might look kind of nice layered on top of this. And I was thinking I would go ahead and sew on my sewing machine around the edges. So I am going to go do that off camera, and I will be back shortly. So I did finish sewing around the edges of my card for the sewing prompt. And I'll hold it up close so you guys can kind of see I did an overcast stitch all the way around. And then I also sewed on the piece of trim on the side. And then I took my layers here and I sewed them together. And then you can also see I used some of my little threads that were sitting on my desk, and I just layered those behind the little photo of the pattern. And so now my next step is I'm going to glue this down on here, and I want to add the word sewing. And then I also threaded a few buttons with thread in them to glue down. So I'm just going to quick kind of take a peek here to see what might look nice. And so I'm thinking I got to put the word sewing towards the bottom. And then I just did 3 buttons, but I have more to the side if I decide I want more. And I just kind of wanted to do these randomly. So I like that one up there. Maybe one down here. And maybe one up in that corner. I think that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all of this down. Then I'm going to use the glossy accents to glue the buttons down. And I might have to plug in my hot glue gun, but I think that's all I'm going to do. And I'll just see, I'll let these sit for a while, and if, like I said, if the glossy accents doesn't glue them down, I'll glue them down with some hot glue. But otherwise, I don't think there's anything else I want to add. I really like how this one turned out. So I will hold it up for you guys to check out. And let me know what you think. And I will see you guys back again next week for another episode of the Full Deck Challenge number 3. And I think next week's prompt, I just watched the video this morning and it was blending. So I will be trying to think about what I want to do for that one for next week. So until then, have a wonderful day and happy crafting.